Investing is considered one of the most important ways to save your wealth and grow for retirement. People around the world opt for new strategies and ways to invest in global markets and earn profits. But is it really as profitable for everyone as being claimed? Or is it just loads of fake hopes to get more and more people to participate in the bullish runs? Hello everyone and welcome to the English Fluency Kingdom, here on our channel Fine English for Anyone, a place where we learn to speak English by discussing real-life scenarios. We aim to teach you the fundamentals of speaking English by using advanced vocabulary and how to talk about real-life issues. Today, I'm with an amazing personality on the show, and he'll be co-hosting this episode to discuss the pros and cons of investing in stocks. Welcoming Donovan. We hope you'll enjoy this episode and learn a great deal of things about stock investments.
Sure they will. Hi, David. Hi, everyone.
The English Fluency Kingdom.
Donnie, how are you? And what is your stance on stock investments? And how do we explain stocks to someone who has no idea about the term?
I feel great today and really excited to be here on the show to talk about stock investments. And if I have to say something about stocks, I will start by saying to anyone to do it. Learn the basics, grasp the concept, and get in the game. To put it simply, stock is all of the shares into which ownership of a corporation is divided. A single share of the stock represents fractional ownership of the corporation in proportion to the total number of shares.
Well said. And to add to that, it's another way of being the owner of a billion-dollar company by just buying a chunk of that business.
Oh yeah, and by doing so, you become a shareholder of that big company.
Of course. By the way, what is a shareholder?
A shareholder is a person who holds or owns shares in a corporation or a company's stock.
Great. So you can invest in the stock of an established company without being the person who established that company. And this allows you to step into the world of business by simply investing or buying a small chunk of that business that is predetermined by the market and the company. And you get a tiny bit of ownership of that business.
Exactly. And it does not require any formal education in the field of finance, and I believe if someone is after financial independence, they should consider investing in stocks from a very early age. Start to learn the concepts and should invest their first $100 at least by the age of 16.
That's interesting. And the fact that people have made fortunes by simply putting their money aside has always fascinated me. But it would be wrong to give half advice to people, so moving on, we'll start with the benefits of stock investments.
The English Fluency Kingdom.
The major upside of investing in stocks is that you can generate massive wealth, and naturally, it opens up more opportunities for you. Most investors who are at the top of their game started slow, with small investments, low returns, and eventually climbed up the ladder. But you may be hearing too much of one side, and not enough of the other. Don't you think so?
Yes, you're right. But the thing is, you can really amass great wealth with stocks. Because over long periods, the stock market has averaged annual gains of close to 10%. Or let's take a more conservative approach and say the return is 8%. Let me share a small example with you. If you invest just $5,000 annually, in 5 years you would have earned roughly $31,000. And if everything stays on the right path, on the course of 30 years, you would have earned over $600,000. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot indeed.
But you will hear people say, well, 30 years is long. That's on average half of our lifetime. But think about this. You invested just $5,000. That's $416 every month for a year. You can put aside more money and do the math.
And you don't even have to work for that money. All you did was to invest that money, keep an eye on the stock, and earn. At this point, I'd like to highlight that there are stocks that suit everyone's needs. You don't need to have $5,000 specifically to start investing in stocks. Another upside of stocks is that there are lots of different kinds of stocks, tied to many different kinds of companies. It's not recommended, but if you want to park your money solely in new and small companies, you can. If you prefer large, established dividend payers, there are plenty of those companies too. You can also focus on a wide range of industries, from financial businesses to energy companies. Overall, it's best to diversify across a range of companies and industries to avoid having too many eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And you also don't need to be loaded in order to get wealthier via stocks. You can just start by saving up whatever you can over some months and then invest in a few shares of stock or a few shares of an index exchange traded fund, ETF, such as the SPDR S&P 500 Trust ETF. Keep doing so over time and increase the size of your investments as you're able to, and ideally, you should see your assets grow. If your resources are very meager right now, look into buying fractions of shares.
Of course. And another benefit of stock investment is that you can access your money quickly. Liquidity is another plus for stocks. With some investments, such as real estate, you can't just draw some or all of your value from them immediately or in a short order. You'll have to list and sell a house, which can take weeks or longer. Or you might apply for a loan with the real estate as collateral. With stocks, though, the market is open every weekday, and you can buy and sell stocks then. It's worth noting, though, that just because you can sell shares quickly doesn't mean you should. After all, a stock may have crashed temporarily right before you sell shares, meaning that you left some money on the table. More on that later when we talk about the downsides of stocks. Also, you can stay ahead of inflation by investing in stocks. It can help you stay ahead of inflation and grow your assets. Over many decades, inflation has averaged close to 3% annually, though there have been periods where it has been much higher or lower. Stocks, as represented by the S&P 500 meanwhile, have averaged close to 10%, allowing investors to easily avoid losing purchasing power. If you invested in bonds or saving accounts or other things that offer a return of less than 3%, you're losing ground in your wealth building attempts. You're taking one step forward and one or two steps back.
Some of these things are new to me as well, like fractions of stocks. All these were not available if you go 10 or 15 years in the past and you were stuck with what you had. And the fact that everyone can access index, check stock performance, and sell or buy them just by tapping on their phone has really changed the dynamics of the game. In the past, only a few members of the society had that approach, and it has been portrayed as something only a few people can do, or it is not profitable enough, or you may need a lot of money to even start. We live in great times.
No doubt in that, but that's not all of the story. But before I move forward, I want to thank our guest today once again for taking the time and joining us today. I hope our dear listeners are enjoying the episode so far, and there's a lot more to come in the future. We've planned a whole series to come out in the future, and keep an eye out. Subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. We are open to your suggestions.
Fine English for anyone.
Moving on, let's talk about the downsides of investing, Donnie.
Yes, the first thing that bothers people is inconsistency of returns. Nothing is promised in the stock market, and the companies that offer stocks, or that are listed as public companies, are not the sole factors controlling the price. Many external factors and economic ups and downs directly affect the market. For starters, while stocks tend to outperform lots of alternative investments over long periods, they may not do well over your particular investing period. But in comparison to Forex, gold, or bonds, stocks still outperform every other option.
It's a waiting game. If you want to grow wealthy via stocks, you can do so, but it generally takes decades, not weeks or months. Revisit the table up top, and you'll see the power of time and compounded wealth. Your money might be growing by tens of thousands of dollars annually after a few years, but it can be growing by hundreds of thousands of dollars annually on average over decades. You need to be patient to be a great investor, but this is not a con per se. Greatness takes time, and if someone tells you that you can triple your investment in just a year trading stocks, you might want to look for another consultant.
Well said. And let's not forget the volatility of the stock market. Over time, it has always gone up, but not in a straight line. There are plenty of corrections and crashes along the way, and you need the fortitude to not freak out and sell in a panic when they happen.
But that's a factor anyone can overcome by keeping a sharp eye on the index of the stock they are trading or have invested in, and sell at the right time to save as much as they can. After all, it takes some amount of work, and you cannot just leave your money in a stock and expect it to grow on its own. Your attention is necessary at any given moment. Well, that brings us towards the end of this episode. Thank you for joining us, dear listeners. I hope you've learned a great deal and enjoyed this effort. Remember, practice makes perfect. Practice your English as much as you can, and you'll surely improve in no time. You were listening to the English Fluency Kingdom podcast, and I'm your host, David, and Donovan was with me co-hosting this episode. Together, we say goodbye. We will catch you in the next one. Take care.
Bye bye.
Fine English for anyone. The English Fluency Kingdom.